Hey, welcome. Today we are going to talk about how does depression show up in your loved one who may have dementia and what do you even do about it, right? So hey, my name is Sivan Purdue. I'm an art therapist and creative life engagement consultant. And today we are going to talk about dementia and depression. It's something I get asked about quite a bit. It's a concern I have for a lot of folks as it often goes undiagnosed and kind of written off with these folks. So I thought it was important to touch base to see and share so that we can kind of understand it better. As always, I love having you here. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I can answer them as we go. Or if you have anything that you want to share or for me to cover, absolutely share it. I love it. I love hanging out and chatting with you. So, as I said, this is a really common question with folks who are diagnosed with dementia, a type of dementia, right? Primarily Alzheimer's, as that's the most common one, right? And how does it show up? And oftentimes it especially shows up in folks who are in the early and middle stages of the disease. And that's often because they know what's going on, right? They're still figuring out the changes. They're processing the losses that are happening. They're in the present moment much more. And so they are coming to terms with the loss of everything that's happening in their life, which is difficult, right? So much is happening, so many losses. You know, dementia is a disease of the loss of autonomy, which is huge. But what's tough sometimes with a diagnosis of depression with someone who has a type of dementia is a lot of the symptoms overlap. So oftentimes in the long battery of tests and things you have to go through to even get a diagnosis of a type of dementia, first they rule out depression, or they might treat the depression to see if something improves. So how does it show up? What are you looking for if you're concerned that your loved one might have depression? So here's a few of them, right? Frequent crying and tearfulness, which is something, generally we see with depression, but oftentimes, especially if this is unusual behavior for your loved one, to keep note of. Any weight loss or changes in appetite, so if they're eating all the time or if they're not eating a lot, is to check that out. Change in sleep patterns, blaming themselves or feeling that they've done something wrong, again, in the early stages of this disease, that can come up. And so that's, again, there's the thought of being a burden, right? Because suddenly you can't do as much on your own as you used to. And so there's often that feeling of, oh gosh, I'm going to burden my loved ones. I don't want to be a burden, that type of thing. And that's a heavy weight for people to hold. Increased agitation sometimes, right? So sometimes depression doesn't show up as sadness and withdrawal, but with irritation and irritability. So they might be crankier or have shorter temper or be less tolerant of stimuli or things going on. Restlessness, so they're pacing, they're walking, they're fidgeting, they can't sit still. And then refusing to take part in activities they used to enjoy. So if they used to enjoy going for walks or doing some relaxing activities, as long as cognitively they're still able to do it, but then they're still saying, nope, I just don't feel like it. I don't want to do it. I'm just going to sit here and watch TV. Isolation's a big part of it. That's also something you want to look for. And if you see these things, to address it. And we'll talk about that in a second. But another important point is specifically with Alzheimer's, right? Depression in Alzheimer's doesn't always look the same as in depression in people without Alzheimer's, right? There's some differences that are there that you want to keep out for, even with, so depression's going to show up differently in someone with Alzheimer's, and it may show up with someone differently with Parkinson's, or someone without a diagnosis of a type of dementia or neurological disorder. And so the cognitive impairments that are experienced by people with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia often make it difficult for them to verbalize what's going on. So whereas someone who does not deal with a neurodegenerative disease deals with depression, they're more able to say, I'm feeling off. I don't feel good. I'm noticing I'm withdrawing. I don't want to do this. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling hopeless, right? Someone with Alzheimer's may not be able to communicate that. So it's important to look at some of those nonverbal, a lot of the nonverbal things that we just talked about, right? To say something's off because they might not be able to verbally explain what is going off. But if their behavior and their mood changes, that's an important red flag to look at and to check into. So it might also be that with Alzheimer's, it might fluctuate, right? So sometimes the symptoms may not last as long and they might come and go. That doesn't mean that like, oh, they were just having a bad couple days. They got over it. It's not a problem. I still absolutely encourage you to get it checked out. It may present as less severe. So because of the memory cognitive issues that may show up, they might forget that they're feeling a certain way, or they may forget basically the depressive feelings, right? And so you want to make sure that you pay attention and that you still attend to it if and when it shows up. Because if it shows up at any time, really, right, you want to address it no matter how long it stays or not. All the feelings are absolutely valid and real and important to attend to. And it's important to note that the person with Alzheimer's is going to be less likely to talk about what they're experiencing and even less likely to talk about if they're having thoughts of attempting suicide. So that's super important to, again, address as soon as you can. And so what should you do, right? Say some of these things come up and you're like, I don't know what I should do, especially if in your family you don't talk about depression and mental health stuff that goes on, right? That's a whole other issue that's happening. But if you see some of these symptoms in your loved one, it is important that you get them checked out, right? So the first stop you should go to is your primary care doctor, the primary care doctor of your loved one, right? And so you are going to help them whether or not they're able to verbalize these things because, right, especially if in the middle later stages, they can't identify what's going on and you're the main reporter. If they're in early stages, they can absolutely help you tell what's going on and you might just fill in as a loved one the gaps a little bit of things they might not even recognize they're doing because it was such a gradual decline that they don't realize they haven't been doing things that they love. They don't realize that their mood has been more irritable and agitated or they've been crying more often. And so yes, go see your primary care doctor for an evaluation and they can either help with different types of treatments, whether it's an antidepressant that can help manage the symptoms or a type of therapy that can help them process all the losses and the things that are going on. Either way, it is important to follow up on that and make sure it's being attended to so that it doesn't snowball into something bigger. It's easier, just like any other health issue, right? It's easier to address it at the start before it gets too big and you kind of have to backtrack and catch up ground that could have been dealt with earlier, right? Just like any other health issue. I also want to emphasize and encourage for all of you that it is important to get a person's depression treated whether or not they have irreversible dementia, right? If someone is struggling with depression or you suspect, absolutely get them the help and the support they need. It is so, so important, regardless of any type of other diagnosis the person may have. Treating the depression in general, but specifically, right, since we're talking about folks with a type of dementia or Alzheimer's, it can help improve overall quality of life. Sometimes it can improve cognitive abilities, and it can reduce other behaviors that might be showing up, making everyone's life just a bit easier. So yes, please, as I said before, if you have any questions or comments about dementia, about depression, about dementia and depression, about any other things that might be showing up, any questions you might have, absolutely throw in there in the chat. I'm happy to talk about it or to do another live about it. I hope this was helpful. Please reach out to me if you have any questions about dementia, Alzheimer's, resources, art therapy and dementia, and how I might be of help. Again, I'm Sivan Purdue. I'm an art therapist and creative life engagement consultant. You can reach me at sivan@purduearttherapy.com. You can go to my website, purduearttherapy.com, for more information and to schedule with me or to just reach out. Stay tuned because I am going to be doing every Tuesday at 3 a live to jump on here and again answer some questions and address things that I commonly get, hopefully be helpful and a resource. And next week we are going to talk about dementia and hallucinations. So that is often something that comes up and people worry about or are curious about. So I thought we would have a quick chat about that. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're watching this in the replay or you're here live. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. Stay warm. It's awfully cold today. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.